So we started kind of rolling with it. And from the first year to the second year, we went from 3 people to 20 people, something like that.
The reality is that when I have more people around me that I've hired because they're qualified, I don't have to solve all those damn problems.
These people that sold off their businesses, every time they being asked a question, it doesn't matter what industry, it's not even HVAC. And they're asking them, what would you tell your younger self? And I always hear the same thing. Relax, take it easy, enjoy the ride. You're gonna miss those days. Don't rush too much.
Hello, friends. I'm Adam Loveridge. Welcome to the Home Services Marketing Podcast, Growth to Acquisition. I'm the owner and founder of Job Calls. We're a home services marketing agency specializing in heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and remodeling contractors. For more information about Job Calls, visit us online at www.jobcalls.com. Hello and welcome to the Home Services Marketing Growth to Acquisition podcast. My name is Adam Loveridge with Job Calls, and I'm really excited today. I'm joined by Michael Katz with Trio Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing out of the Bay Area. That's San Francisco, if you know where the Bay Area is. And Michael, thanks so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, HVAC industry.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, Michael, because I've been seeing you out there on podcasts lately, and you're known for at least in what I've been able to ascertain for some of the really rapid and accelerated growth that you guys have had over there at Trio Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing. And so I really wanted to talk with you about what your growth has looked like. And for our listeners, I think it'd be a really great topic today to really talk about what the specific needs are for HVAC plumbing companies as they grow from, say, startup to $1 million, and from $1 million to $5 million, and 5 to 10, and that sort of thing. But before we get into all of that, tell me a little bit about, about you, about Trio Heating, Air, and Plumbing, and a little bit about your story and journey.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again for having me on, by the way. And I said this before and I'll say it again. I like you. You're a good guy. I love talking to good people in the industry. Love meeting new people. Um, our story, yeah, definitely. So our story is not the typical trades, rags to riches or rapid growth, whatever you want to call it, kind of story, because we didn't necessarily come from the trades and we didn't have the business experience before. It was just two hungry uh, brothers that just wanted to do something, kind of following our father's footsteps. He was always really ambitious. We learned a lot from him. So wanted to do something big. Took us many years to really find the direction. So um, I'll cut down to it. We were supposed to do something completely different. We were gemologists by trades. That's what we're supposed to do. So diamond certificates. And we didn't want to do it. It just didn't feel like the right thing. We wanted, just like everyone, we wanted the shortcut, the quick, growth, the become a millionaires overnight. We wanted that kind of thing.
Well, did you choose the right path? Then I guess is the real question.
I'll say this: it was the longest shortcut. But it's amazing. I'm happy about where we are. Momentum and intuition are two things that I live by. I think people are always kind of trying to calculate the results and the time and everything, and it doesn't really happen that way. It doesn't matter what you do. You can't really plan every single thing, right? You don't plan on being sick.
No.
It just happens. So basically it's one of these things that you have to know what you want and you have to start putting the one foot in front of the other, and the way will kind of unveil itself as you go along, and you got to trust your intuition when you feel like something is the right thing or the wrong thing. um, Sometimes people can't tell the difference between intuition and fear, kind of gets mixed up, and they just kind of pause and they don't even do anything. But anyways, we got into the HVAC industry around COVID time, heard about companies growing, private equities purchasing, getting into the trades, kind of moving away from tech, that whole shift in everything. A lot of things changed around the world. So we were doing sales at the time for installation companies. We were doing really well. We were, 20-year-olds at the time, uh, making 20, 30K a month doing sales. So life was beautiful. Life was easy. And I did wanted to do the next thing because I felt like that industry was really a niche. And when we slowly heard about the heating and air conditioning industry, I saw these individuals that I still look up to a lot. The people that really paved the way for us young entrepreneurs. Tommy Mello, big, I really admire this person. Um, Ishmael, Tom Howard, a lot of people in the industry that I looked up to, and I had the chance to speak to more than a few times, and sit with them, spend some time with them, ask them questions, and it was really um, amazing to see the ability that what they were able to do with this industry, the impact that they had. So, long story short, got into HVAC, no business experience, no experience at all, and all we did was just learning, implementing, rob and duplicate, whatever you want to call it. We just wanted to figure out who has the best process in each department of the business. How is it supposed to look like at 1 million, 25, 50, 100? These are typical numbers that you hear about, right? Those are the
Sure.
core numbers. No one really talks too much about the 60s, although that's an amazing, sweet spot. Sometimes I like to call it too. So basically, we just went on a race, got into it, jumped out of an airplane, built a parachute on the way down, like they said, and we were able to figure it out. Got into 2 million within 2 years, um, and now we're pacing about 15 million. We're on our third, fourth year, you can say, and I'm excited. I'm excited. We're gonna take this all the way to. For us, the goal would be to really take over our area. There's only one company in San Francisco Bay Area that got into 100 million, and that's Service Champions, which is very weird to say. There's a lot of private equities here. They purchase a lot of companies. You wouldn't know about it, but only one company really kind of dominated the area. So our goal is not just 100 million. I know everyone says 100 million. I want to get to 100 million. Even I say it a lot of times because it's really
Sure.
hard to get there. But our goal is to dominate the area. We want to be the number one company. That's our goal. That's what we're doing, and I hope that answers kind of like the whole story and the gist of it for the most part.
What I love that about what you're doing is that you are learning from guys like Tommy Mello, who have grown $100 million garage door business, right, and understand the ins and outs of it. And he's written obviously a few books. There's quite a few guys out there that have written a few books, and I'm a big believer that why make mistakes yourself when you can learn from other people's mistakes.
Oh,
And I think
100%.
that's really neat that you've chosen to kind of be mentored by these folks so that you can really shortcut a lot of the struggle, because getting to that first 2 million is a struggle, right? Getting that first 5 million is a struggle. So is 10, as I'm sure you're aware, and we'll talk more about that. But that was one of the biggest things that I really took out of what you had to say just then, was just this. Again, why should we go out and make every mistake in the book when there's people who would be more than happy to help educate us along the way? And then another thing I really like about this industry, a couple of weeks ago, I was out at Any Hour Plumbing, Heating, and Electric here in Utah.
Oh,
Yeah,
amazing
huge.
company. Amazing.
And it's interesting too, because when we talked in preparation for this particular podcast, you had mentioned that there's more safety in being, larger companies. And what I found really fascinating when we went and chat with Any Hour, and obviously they have a PE side of their business now, they're going out and trying to do things in a very special way, but just how systemized this company really was. And moreover, how much they put into training. As we went through their facility, it was like every third room was a training facility, Yeah.
For every
Yeah,
department.
absolutely. And so I think it really is about processes. It's definitely about people, in terms of, that growth success. And really, really quickly, obviously, to get to track on to $15 million this year, you guys have some trucks on the road. What has your growth looked like from the beginning days during COVID to now? I mean, how many trucks do you guys have on the road, and how many employees are there at Trio Heating, Air, and Plumbing?
Yeah, right now. So I can tell you right now, we're about 60 employees, 60 and some change. We just made just 3 recruits this past week. It's getting prep ready for summer. Now is the time to hire. In about a month, it's too late. You're not going to hire anyone in about a month. And you don't want to be dealing with hiring, recruiting processes
Oh yeah,
while
you're going to be
clients are
busy.
blowing up your phone. So yeah, it's going to be a really good summer. I feel it. It's a good year. It felt like it, starting out, and it's still, that's the case. We're breaking records again. So I love being in the fire, in the battlefield when it happens like that. So about 60 employees, and I think our company really splits between 80, 90% um,
Service.
field, the revenue facing, right? The service, the install, the sales, and then the rest of it will be 10, 20% office. So I would say, quick math, I think we have about 30, 40 vehicles on the road. Now, I could be completely off. I start, I know when your business is just starting out and you get your first truck and you take your girlfriend or wife or partner, on the ride with your brand new truck. I did it for the first three. Once you pass the 10, the 15, you just
Right.
don't really,
So, Michael, for our listeners, take us back to the very, very beginning. And I'd love to hear kind of how you got started, how you got up and off the ground, especially having no experience in the heating and air conditioning space, and having been selling insulation services. I'd love to hear kind of what that growth cycle looked like for you.
Yeah, I think the kind of going back to the early days when we're starting, that was 2021, because July 21 was our first official HVAC job that we did in-house. So that was the moment that for my brother and I, David, we know we're officially in heating and air conditioning. So the way we started was just like most companies when they start off, I went online, I searched for heating and air conditioning, repair, service, install, quotes, whatever. And I saw what's out there. What does it look like from the customer experience? So I saw Yelp and Thumbtack and Google and, Angie's List and yada, yada. And I checked, the top people with reviews and I looked at their pictures and how everything works. And basically, I just figured, okay, I guess I need to look like this. So I opened up these pages, got my license, did everything, all that, and asked for reviews from some buddies of mine. And at that moment, what we were doing is basically taking out leads. So I would put a bid out there, could be to Yelp or Thumbtack. I was burning through a lot of cash, which a lot of um, people that are really small shops are doing. A lot of them are burning through cash unless you happen to have accounts or some way to generate business without marketing spend. Because a lot of them are also not keeping track of anything. All they know is, do I have more money in the bank? Do I have less? If I have less, oh my God, there's a problem. If I have more, I'm rich. So they kind of don't get into the numbers, and that's what I did in the beginning as well. So, but I got the phones ringing, and clients were calling me. We're going out. We're three people in the company: my brother, myself, and a friend of ours, and sold HVAC jobs. Told the customer, we'll take care of you. There was a subcontractor that would go out and do the jobs. I would be there making sure the jobs are going smooth. Made sure I'm getting my reviews. Make sure the customers are happy. Dealing with the massive headache of callbacks and contractors not picking up and coming out at the right time. They give you the taillight warranty. As soon as you see the car taillight, that's your warranty. So
And were
basically,
you just focused on installs at the time? Or were you doing both service and installs?
just installs. I didn't have the skill set myself. Now I have a skill set in a lot of different things. I can do so much now, right? I understand HVAC. I'm passionate about it. But back then, no chance in hell. So it was mainly about just, customer needing a furnace or an air conditioner. Great. I'll I can do it for you. So that's what we're doing. And what happened was, we started out really small and I fell in love with the jobs. I really liked it. So we started recruiting. We went on Indeed and, whatever recruiting sites that you have, ZipRecruiter, whatever have you, or, buddies of mine that I knew some people and it's like, oh, this guy does installation and HVAC. He sold it in this company. I was like, oh, great. So we started kind of rolling with it. And from the first year to the second year, we went from 3 people to 20 people, something like that. So that was massive, and a lot of it was the install. A lot of it was the labor side because we were still selling installation and HVAC, and we knew how to keep people busy. We were selling air duct cleaning, dryer vent cleanings, whatever we can do to offer homeowners at their houses. We were doing it. No overhead, no expenses, so we were giving prices that were really, really competitive. So obviously the customer sees really good people. We always made sure to look professional, so shirts, everything. Um, it looked really good. So
And still subbing out all the work at this point then.
yes, what depending on the job, right? So if it was like an installation, duct cleaning, driver, all these different things, we were doing those in-house and hiring people. And then once we had the heating and air conditioning part, we moved it. And slowly we got one installer from HVAC that knew how to do both. And he was kind of like there with the subs doing a part of the work. And then he had a buddy. So it kind of slowly developed until the moment that we had three of the worst installers anyone could ever hope to have in the company. It was an absolute nightmare. I will never forget. I still cleaned up work that they did back in 2021 up until I think a year and a half ago.
You mean on the
Absolutely.
warranty side, like having to go back and fix it?
Yes.
Oh no.
Jesus Christ. It was horrible. It was horrible. I felt bad for customers. So we did a lot of refunds, extra warranty, extra stuff for free. Taking care of customers is the most important thing. You're there. Customer is above. I don't care about your dreams and hopes and management and in-house and bonus. And nothing matters if you don't have the customer service number one. It has to be number one because without them, you don't have anything.
Well, I think that's especially true in HVAC. Not to cut you off, but the fact of the matter is that most of your business is going to be repeat business, and so if you're not taking care of that customer in the first place, and that's especially true with service. Install. If you're doing the installs right, I think you're still coming back with maintenance plans and still staying in the home and looking for that long term future customer. But man, if it's service, it's like the dentist. You should be in there twice a year, on your tune ups, right, fall and spring, and that they're going to keep calling if you provide that great experience for them, and especially because you got their sticker, you got the sticker sitting on their unit, right?
So Adam, let's talk about that because when you're starting out and you're 1 million or 5 million, you do not think about those things unless you're one of these shops that have been in the industry for 10, 20 years. But to me, a lot of times I want to make sure that I speak to, and I'm trying, most of the people that I interact with are around the same age. I'm 31. So
Mm.
a lot of the people that I meet are really hungry in their 20s or they're around their 40s. They just started their family or, they want to grow. Or I'm meeting a lot of people kind of like from a different generation. The generation before was not doing the Google. They knew print, they knew accounts, they knew repetitive business. They had a different mantra that's completely lost nowadays because all people know nowadays is to throw money on the computer. That's all, right?
Spend it in
So
ads.
spend it in ads. And we were doing that in the beginning too. We were literally spending so much money out there. And I'll give you a great example. Slow season right now for us in the Bay Area, it's between February to around, end of May. It depends on the weather. Most of the time, that's slow season. And in slow season, we're able to bring from an outbounding campaign that we did in-house through text messaging. Because again, we were doing the outbound phone call, and then one of our representatives were sitting here. She's incredible, and she basically said, "Can I do text to the customer?" Now all of us were like, "Are you being lazy right now? Do you like not want to pick up the call? Do you not believe in your ability? Blah blah blah." And I always have the same mentality. I never say immediately no. I always say, "Let's give it a shot. Let's try it out. Let's see what you got." And I swear she went in, reached out to, I think, 10, 15 customers by text message and booked five.
Yeah.
And it just comes to show me that this industry is changing. So going back to what I'm talking about with repetitive business, when we were in slow season right now, in 1 month we got $400,000 from repetitive business. And I know maybe people think like our months are typically around the 800,000 to a million something, right?
Hmm.
Summertime we can do the 2 million per month, but for the most part we're still at that size. So we're talking about 40%, almost 50% of our monthly revenue from that. Because when you have the repetitive business, it's hard for people to understand how to maintain it, how to create it. And my goal with when we do shop tours here, because a lot of companies come here to learn, or when I'm doing these things, when I'm jumping on and talking to people like yourself that know so much about the industry and marketing, is to explain to people what softwares you need to use, what campaigns you need to have, and what sort of automation you could run in the background without needing to hold it with your hands and monitor and be angry about the lady in the call center that you dropped 50 different projects on and forgot to do it, right? So, or marketing, right? You drop so many different things on so many different people, and that's why you always have these ups and downs. And there's so much automation nowadays. So, we can get into that and talk a little bit about it. But I'm thinking about the first few years of my business, all the marketing spend that I put over there. I lost a lot of clients because I wasn't able to maintain the relationship. And going into these years, all of these clients that I've done repairs for, a lot of them want to replace their systems, and I'm their
Yep.
first call because I
Absolutely.
sold a membership. But people say memberships are horrible. You shouldn't sell memberships. No one cares about membership. I made so much money from memberships on sales. So it's like it's hard to know
I'll tell
which to
you,
listen to.
I haven't. It's interesting because probably 4 years ago, One of my clients here locally, a group called North Star, was doing the same thing. Right, every spring and fall, they had their calls. Their receptionist getting on the phone, trying to make phone calls to all of their service club members.
Yeah.
Hey, it's time for your tune-up. It's time for your tune-up. And we looked at this and we're going like, what the hell are you doing? Because they'd never been able to get through their whole list of customers, right? And what they do is that whether you're paying for a membership or you're not paying for a membership, you're a member of their Gold Star Club, right? Is what they call it. Now
Okay.
they go to their actual paying members first, right? And they get the discounts for tune-ups and everything else, but all of their other quote unquote members get a free tune-up every year. Actually, technically, you get a free tune-up twice a year, in fall and in spring, and it's the opportunity for their techs to get out and obviously upsell, cross sell, everything else. But when we went from doing phone calls to text messages, all of a sudden they were able to just start booking like crazy. And you can take that one step further and do direct booking, where people can literally just book directly onto your text calendars in a round robin fashion. And it was the first time they got through their entire list of customers. And I feel like in that particular month, they did something like another $350,000 in sales. And it's because that on a long enough timeline, that service call is going to turn into an installation.
It will.
It will.
And that's you're planting seeds.
Absolutely.
All you're doing is just planting seed and farming, and it's gonna grow.
Absolutely. And like you said, when it comes to automation, I mean, if you've got a decent CRM and you're focused on getting new information out to your customers every single month, and you stay top of mind that way, and you do things like put the stickers on the units, or cover up your competitor's sticker with yours, right?
Yeah.
But those things all matter, and that's what keeps the customers coming back. And what, for me, I think that's what makes, whether it's HVAC or plumbing, right? HVAC, because that equipment is naturally going to die eventually. There's going to be that repeat business factor, but I think that's true in plumbing too, because on the plumbing side, you've got water heaters that are going to go out in their useful life, and other things along those lines, piping issues that are going to happen. But the big trend lately, especially with the housing market and interest rates going up, is now remodeling is becoming a huge thing. And so on the plumbing end, that's what we see a lot of our clients doing is jumping into remodel wholesale. We also happen to work with remodeling construction companies, right? Remodelers. And so it's really nice to be able to just pair those two together. But I think what you're alluding to, or what I heard you saying, and it speaks to the truth that I know too, which is customer service is everything. And if you take care of your customers and you stay top of mind with them, and you truly value them and look to solve their problems, and you fix problems when they happen, like you guys had to do in the early ages, that's how you build a business, man. And I think that's how you really catapult up into the tens of millions in sales.
Yeah.
And that's
You never get comfortable. You never get comfortable. You have to always work on every single customer. There's always this kind of tennis match that I have in my head about, we got to 1,000 reviews on Google organically. So if a negative review comes in, we don't want to dump another $2,000 at it. Just leave it as is. You get comfortable too. You get sloppy. And it's something that, sometimes that's the biggest fear. There's always every heating and air conditioning owner, if you're above 5 million, 10 million, there's always the dream of one day, selling your business and, kind of driving off into the sunset and go fishing or something. And that's actually one of my biggest fears, because the hunger and the struggle and the not having is what got you there. And a lot of times I see people sell their business and kind of lose their way, and they don't know exactly what to do. So I think it's important to really, to kind of touch base on what we said in the beginning too. It's kind of, how should I put this in the right words? You talked about learning from other people's mistakes. It's so hard to do because you haven't seen it, you haven't felt it. It's as if, like, let's say you got into a car accident, and imagine someone would have come to you a second before and told you, don't, be careful, keep a little bit away from him, you might get into a car accident. It already happened. So now, and retroactively, I can look at it and say, like, wow, that would have been perfect. But if someone would tell me that before and I haven't experienced it myself, I don't know, I don't understand. So I think it's one of those things to kind of listen to someone that you trust, and hear your intuition about what it says, and just kind of go with it. And one of the things that I heard a lot of times from these people that sold off their businesses, every time they being asked a question, it doesn't matter what industry, it's not even HVAC, and they're asking them, what would you tell your younger self? And I always hear the same thing: relax, take it easy, enjoy the ride. You're gonna miss those days. Don't rush too much. And again, I'm in this situation like the car analogy, the accident. I don't see it yet. I don't feel it yet, but I'm trying to really relax and enjoy the ride and make sure that I'm listening to what other people are telling me to do, people that I trust and believe in, and it always worked out for me. And I think with the membership thing, we do need to really explain, because you mentioned about plumbing and all that. So let's give someone that could be listening to this just an understanding of how your membership is supposed to work. Uh, Membership is something that you're not supposed to make money off of during the time of the membership. You're not supposed to make money off of it. So whether you charge $10 a month, which customers are not going to look at quality work that way. Sometimes your pricing are, you're thinking, I'm going to crash the market, I'm going to give such low pricing. No, low pricing means low quality work. Customers nowadays are smart. So for the most part, you charge 10, 20, 30 a month. It doesn't really matter. The idea is to keep your clients on a monthly membership, right? You don't necessarily just want to charge them once, because the client feels like it's too much money at the end of the year. If you just hit them with the bills, like, hey, you got to pay another 200, $300. I'm like, nah, maybe not. It's a little bit easier when customers are kind of like on a monthly thing and they see the benefits from it. But for the membership, monthly is something that you want to do, as well as the option of a yearly. You don't want to lose customers based on that. You have to get memberships because in slow season, you would be able to hit up those members and send your technicians out there. I even tell that to customers flat out. Sir, we are not making money from your memberships. We are doing this because our technicians get slow a certain time of the year. You're getting a tune up pretty much for free. We're going to do quality work. And in case your system breaks one day, we're going to be the company you choose to do it. I don't hide anything. I literally tell them how it is, and that helps us sell so much. So,
Well, it's also kind of like insurance if you think about it, and then there's this proclivity that because I'm paying for my insurance policy, I want to actually use the damn thing. So
yeah. And you're not gonna do it yourself, right? Even in my own home, I don't always replace these things because I don't think about it. I don't remember. You get caught up in your day to day. You don't think about the filter. So if you have a company coming in, changing your filter out for you, cleaning out your system, making sure your bills are lower, number one, it pays for itself. Number two, we're not a company that tries to push services and sell more stuff. Yes, we're sales oriented, but we're not going to offer someone something that they don't need and make it sound as if they need it. So if we offer air quality, air scrubber, we're going to give them the offer, but we don't do any pushy sales tactics. So our customers feel really comfortable, and it gets them to ask you for more things, because if you just show them the options and move out of their way, most of the times, they'll make the decision to go with you because they see the quality of it. So one of the things that we do for our memberships, a few of the biggest things, we give them percentages off replacements. So we give them 5% or 10% off replacements. That's an incentive. Every time you make a sale, you can earn a member. Now you're thinking, I already sold them a furnace and air conditioner. Why the hell do I need them as a member and give them a discount and lose money? Because you maybe didn't do the ductwork, because maybe you didn't do the installation, because there's going to be plumbing, because you're going to open another trade, because whatever reason, right? So always try to collect those memberships. Another big thing that we do, we actually give them 100% credit on their membership towards a replacement. So any dollar you spent with us is actually going into a piggy bank. At some point, if you ever want to replace your system, you can take that amount of money that you invested and basically put it as a discount towards your system.
I
So
love that.
there's some amazing things that you can do with memberships. And the way we work with it in slow season, memberships is our last bucket. So we hit up all the customers that we've done repairs for. We hit up all the customers that we've done installations for. We go through all of the list of outbounds. And once we get to the end of it, which is right now in May, we're hitting up our last, few people of the list. Our last, it's kind of like war. You're sending out your first troops and then the second, I love it. So the last one is basically memberships, and now we're hitting up all of our members and we're able to book tune-ups on the schedule. So our technicians are busy. They are able to sell actually because they bought a furnace from us, but now they want to do the AC, stuff like that. It's just incredible. So I think memberships are something that people need to really work on. And for the people that think that having a big client list, it's what's going to help you sell to a private equity, because I know some people listening to podcasts are always trying to get the private equity thing, right? How can I make a
Right.
quick exit? Um, if you have a massive list of clients, yes, that's going to be a good thing, but it's not going to be the determining factor. It's not like that's the one thing. What private equities really care about is EBITDA, profitability at the end of the year, multiple based on revenue size. That's it. They don't care about anything else. And is your operation something that I'm going to have to take over and then run myself and restructure or build, or is it a quick, turnkey operation? So that's all I have about, the memberships, the tune up, these type of things. Yeah.
No, it's a really wonderful piece of advice, and to HVAC company owners out there that aren't taking advantage of memberships because they why it's
Oh
you're not
man.
making anything on them. Yeah, I'll tell you, in my experience doing marketing for heating and air conditioning companies for the last 15 years, close to. Um, there is a discernible, noticeable difference between the companies that offer memberships and the ones that do not, in terms of their revenue, in terms of their consistency, in terms
Yeah.
of how busy their guys are staying during the slow season.
Yeah.
It is the thing that cures the slow season, and there is always a slow season in HVAC. I
Yeah.
don't care where you
Yes.
are. There is always a slow season, and if you're above the Mason Dixie line, there's two,
Yeah. Yeah. And
spring and fall.
and the plumbing thing too. Plumbing is something that's a little bit year round. They do have a slow season too, but it's kind of different than HVAC. HVAC is only when clients are suffering from heat or cold. But for the most part, like we offer plumbing with our membership too. We just added it. We didn't even charge them $1 more. We called all of our members like, hey, by the way, we do water heater flushes. We owe you one. And we go out and do it. So I mean, there's so much that you can do, and you have to have a certain amount of memberships per technician. So you need to have I don't remember the number exactly, but it's
Hmm.
supposed to be at least, I think, 200, 300 members per technician,
Okay.
to keep your guys busy year round. So there's some basic numbers that you want to have, and I having all these ducks in a row. We're kind of jumping from the automations to growth to vehicles to processes, even if we're not diving deep into each one of them because they're rabbit holes, but you need to have a certain basic setup for everything. And it's a playbook. You got to ask the questions. You got to figure out the playbook for your technicians, for the memberships, for the call center, for all these different things. And once you have those ducks in a row, the growth just happens. The business is demanding it from you. The business wants, it tells you like there's more of an ability here. So it's only lack of processes, prejudgment, lack of belief. These are the type of things that are really holding people, and fear. These are really holding people back.
Well, you brought up fear, and I think that's what's interesting too is that I don't think you quite hit on this, but I often will equivocate fear and excitement. And in the
Yeah.
early days of your business, right? You are excited because it's like, oh, we don't know what we're doing. We're going to go out there and do everything possible to make this work, but there's always that little nagging fear of
Yeah.
you're going to fail.
Creeping on you.
That's right.
I have it
Absolutely.
every day. I have it every day, man.
Well,
You got to learn to live with that demon.
Absolutely, and it's interesting, and this is where I think we'll segue into this because I remember you saying to me when we kind of just did the pre-planning for this podcast that there's a certain level that you want to get to revenue wise,
Yeah.
because at that level of revenue, you're more stable, you're more secure as a company. Tell me more about that.
Yes. Yes. Let's talk about it. So, um, the hardest a lot of times I hear from people, I want to stay small, I don't want to grow. And again, there's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong. There's the right thing for the right person and the right company in every area. Like there's no rules to this thing. And I think it's also based on your dreams, your goal, the capacity, how much stress can you handle, because it is stressful, especially if you want to do it fast like me. So, and most younger kids nowadays, we have no patience. We're impulsive. We want that dopamine rush. We want, quick fix. So I get that, but it's not for everyone. So, anyways, when it comes to growth, when we were in the early stages, when we were about 10 employees, 20 employees or so, um, every day was an absolute nightmare, because if I only have one or two sales guys, which is what you have at that size, then one of them is out sick or got an injury, and guess what? Half of your business is shut down. So a lot of times when people tell me like, I want to stay how it is, I want to stay okay, so you want to hold everything in your hands. So what if you have one secretary that's your call center, marketing, accounting, you kind of drop everything on her, right? Like without her, you'll be lost. You're able to
Right.
find that magic person, and they're out on maternity leave. What do you do? So you're so dependent. And in addition to that, even though I'm talking a lot about Rob and duplicating processes,
we
Sure.
have tried to recreate the wheel a lot of times without even noticing it because the problem comes up and it was a big mess during the day, kind of, your whole week was kind of like stressful. And then you're like, we got to come up with a process. And you don't always think, let me pause, fly out to Arizona, go to this, A1 garage door and ask them for the process. It doesn't always work like that. So you do have to recreate it, and that's where the mistakes happen. You got to be really like careful with what's worth creating your process. Is it an opening the shop kind of thing? Because that's pretty straightforward. Or is it how do we collect payments from customers, or what do we do when they don't pay and it's been a while?
Right.
Like there's different things, right? So when we got to the 30 employees and the 40 employees, suddenly I noticed that things are changing a little bit, right? If I have, some people quit sometimes, you can't control that.
Sure.
So when these situations would happen, suddenly it wasn't all just on me. I've had like a few other people that I can kind of rely on, and the business was kind of moving. And we got to the 50 and 60 employees. And if we lose a major salesperson or a major position or whatever it is, we're just having a bad day.
Right.
It's a bad day. It's not a bad month or life. It's very like straightforward. So as we're growing, what I'm noticing is, you know, you have certain layers. At first, you are everything. You're the installer, the technician, this and that. And then from there, you become the manager. You're the first manager in your company and you manage everything. And then you hire a certain manager to kind of help you. And then you're his manager. So that's your layers. And then when you're at around the 50, 60 employees or so, there's kind of like three layers. There's the business owner that's also managing a few things, wearing the multiple hats. And then you have managers and then people underneath them. And then potentially maybe there's another person managing. So you kind of get to the fourth layer. But once you get to 100 or 120, the org chart completely changes. And now there's a few more layers. So what's happening is you don't have to necessarily deal with everything. Your hands don't have to be with everything. Now, yes, your stress levels are going to be bigger because
Sure.
the problems you're going to be dealing with is, hey, we can't make payroll this week. What are you going to do, Mr. Bossman? You got to give us the answer. You're the guy. So
More
yes,
money,
there's
more problems, right?
right, but at the same time, honestly, I look at it this way. This is how I really, financials are the most important thing. If you don't have the right financial person in your business, you're going to completely crash. So I think you got to make sure that you have the right financial person in the business because literally, this is how most companies shut down. I get phone calls in the last year and a half. I typically get a lot of offers from private equity. They want to buy us out. Every week, I get at least 3 to 7 offers, sometimes like three, four, five in a day. I don't know. Maybe there's some funds that went out and they're trying
Wow.
to buy. But we get a lot of these and we're always ignoring them because, we're not interested in that at the moment. And I get a lot of businesses also calling me, like business owners. I got a debt, 1 million. If you can help me, just buy me out. I'll give you whatever you want, or 2 million in debt. So people get into these things. Credit is really risky. So where I'm trying to get to with this is if your financials are in place, and a problem comes up. You said more money, more problems. As long as it's not a financial thing, because I'm kind of pre-planning, I'm not taking all my money from summer and going out and buying Ferraris and, painting the ceiling gold in the office and buying an expensive espresso machine. I'm taking this money and I'm saying this is for a slow season next year. This is for, the extra hours that the employees are going to need.
Yep.
And when the problem comes, honestly, what's the difference between being a 10 employee company and there's a problem with a customer or someone fell off a roof or whatever it is, or a problem with 50, 60 employees? It's the same fear, the same stress, the same emotions that you're going through. There's no difference. And you're going to be able to figure it out 90% of the times, 99% of the times. How many problems are not figure outable? Like, seriously, how many of them? So it's just one of these things that you get the stress, the problem comes in. Don't throw the stress on your employees. You're the face of the company. You got to be, you got to make sure that you're always stable. Communicate to them, work with them together. There's smart people in your business. I don't care if you have 3 people or 100 people. There's smart people in your business. Communicate with them, come up with a solution together. And then the problem doesn't matter at which size, but the difference is you're not dependent on one individual or two individuals. So I personally have a different belief about small businesses. I don't like to be in a situation when I'm small. the bigger, the easier for
Yeah.
me.
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense. And, we talk about problems too, right? And the reality is that when I have more people around me that I've hired because they're qualified, I don't have to solve all those damn problems. They're going to solve a lot of them on their own, which is why we hired
100%.
them to do that in the first place. And I think, we keep talking about fear, I'll tell you in the podcasts I've done, I don't think that I've heard another, business owner, company, HVAC plumbing company owner talk about fears, right? Because it's like, oh no, we're man, we're strong. We don't have, we don't, we don't have fears, but bullshit.
Man,
Yes, we
don't
do. Of
cry.
course we do. And I think that frankly, one of the biggest fears that keeps people stuck at 2 trucks, 3 trucks, 8 trucks, 2 million, 3 million, that sort of thing, is the fear of losing control. And when I start hiring and all of a sudden everybody else is taking on responsibilities and my responsibility list gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but I'm the guy that built this thing, there's this fear of like, what happens when it all just runs completely out of control?
Yeah.
And I can't rein it back in at that point, right? Because my hands aren't in everything anymore. And I think that's legitimately what goes. It's certainly what I've experienced too. And then the last thing that I'll say too is that I completely agree with you that financials and having solid financials is absolutely imperative. And for the last year or so, I've been implementing the Profit First system. There's a book out there by Mike Michalowicz. And one of the things that he talks about that I think is really brilliant for HVAC, it's really brilliant for remodeling, for really any type of business that has seasonality to it, is preparing for those, quote unquote, rainy days. And setting aside a percentage of profits into an account that we don't touch, but it's like, this is the spring account. This is that February to May account where we know we're going to be lighter on sales. We still, we want to retain our people. So it's not like we're going to stop paying them. And, and we're going to equalize that summer revenue where we're making $2 million a month and be able to cover everything and have a prudent reserve, and I think that that's so important. And if you're running your business day-to-day cash flow, I mean, I remember I had a client for several years before I was just like, look, I'm not going to do this anymore, out of Wisconsin, where like clockwork, man, every single fall he would call up and like, oh man, we're not getting enough jobs. Can I cancel services for the next 3 or 4 months?
Oh my God.
And it's just like, dude, how about you just learn how to manage your damn money,
Yeah.
Instead
And
of
it's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle, right? Because they want to control everything. They don't know everything. They fear the not knowing everything. And then it keeps you back. I honestly don't see the difference between this to having like running a business or having a job. Sometimes these things are almost similar. Sometimes there's a bigger risk with the other one. So
right.
it's really one of those things, and that's the fear, right? Like I don't know anything about financials. You have a guy literally listening to this, hopefully right now, and he's thinking like I don't know what I'm supposed to know in financials. I never liked numbers. I'm scared of numbers, right? I failed in class, so you don't have to overly complicate it because nowadays there is simple processes that you just have to follow, and Service Titan and these type of apps keep track of everything. So chewable bites, don't try to take a big bite out of it and it's just too much, right? If I take any business owner right now and I talk to them about the marketing, the sales, the warehouse, the inventory, the data accuracy, the this, the that, they might get a heart attack. It's too much when you look at it as a whole, right? Because it's big. But start with something small, right? And the small thing is actually first, I think what should drive you is your core values and where do you even want to go. If your dream is not big enough that you're scared of it, like I think that what else is there? What else are you going to do? Like I
Well,
really.
how do you find your edge, really? Because I think that's really what entrepreneurs are really all about, right? Is it's like we don't want to be employees, at least not for very
Yeah.
long. We become very unemployable because we really want to know, like, what is the limit of my capacity, at the end of the day. And I think the only way that you truly discover that is by starting your own company.
Yeah.
You want to know how much you're worth in the marketplace? Go out and take a sales job or start a business and find out exactly how much you're worth.
Oh yeah.
And then figure out how to make yourself more valuable, right?
That's the real test. That's
Yeah.
the real test. When you actually taking the bet on yourself is something that a lot of people are not willing to. They're not willing to pull the trigger when the time comes to take the bet on yourself and double down and say, because it's easy to judge the business owner or the manager or any person in any position when you're not there in their shoes. It's very easy to judge them. And most of the times you're only seeing 10% of what's really going on, right? You know,
100%.
there's people in your shop right now that, they pass through and somehow they catch you only when you're making coffee in your machine and you're like, this guy just makes coffee all day. I can do this thing. And it's really you have to be a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur. You have to have a big dream. Tommy Mello always says, "My dream is big enough to fit everyone else's dream in it." And I think for my brother and I, it's kind of the same thing. We're very really ambitious, and we want to take everyone with us for the ride. We treat people good, and we attract these good people, and we take care of them, and we genuinely care about them and communicate with them. And it's not just about the quick buck. We
Yeah.
care about the customers. We care about the environment. Our business plants one tree for every job that we do. We're really trying to do something that's a little bit different than other companies, and people feel it. The feeling kind of spreads out throughout the business. So I think when it comes to the financials, when it comes to sales, when it comes to generating calls with marketing and all these different things, the biggest thing I can say to contractors and entrepreneurs is really to avoid the momentary hype and motivation. The goal is not to listen to a podcast, get motivated for about a week, and start taking content, and then you dump it, and then sales are down, and then you jump on sales, and you're a fireman, right? You just hop in from one thing to the next. The thing is to go and do a shop tour. And I really can't stress it enough because that's what helped me. I can only speak from my experience. I went in, I did a shop tour, and I basically looked at a profitable business, successful business, and I saw their call center and I figured out the five things that they have: their conversion rate, their scripts and all these different things. And I did the same thing with service. I did the same thing with sales. I did the same thing with financials. There's a lot of businesses like ours that will do it. And you're just on the race to implement these things. The beautiful thing is you don't have to be really talented to do it. You have to be very dedicated and patient and hungry to implement. You just have to have those qualities in you. You don't need to be smart. You don't need to be super talented. All of these things are completely irrelevant. What you need to be is resilient. You need to be really hungry. You need to be a little bit crazy. And a lot of the times also, believe it or not, you need to also learn to not listen to people in your business that are taking you in different directions. And I know maybe some people don't talk about it, but I have a lot of things that I don't necessarily consult too much with them if I feel like they're not seeing what I'm seeing. And you have to also have that in you. You have to make sure that you're sometimes telling people, this is the direction that we're going, because your intuition and your kind of like ability to see things as an entrepreneur is very different than people in office. A lot of people look out for their own interests and their own dreams. And, sometimes, believe it or not, you can have someone within your operation saying no to a new process because they feel like it's going to give them more work. They feel like it's
Sure.
going to be, something like that. Now, the case could be that maybe, yeah, maybe you're not paying them enough. Maybe you're just, I don't know how companies work. I know here we take care of our people, so they're on board every time something comes in. If something comes up and we got to take care of it. But you have to be firm sometimes and know to say, no, this is what we're doing. This is the direction. And you can't listen to any other opinion. So you have to kind of learn to navigate between the two and pick the good from the bad and really organize it. But I can't stress it enough. You're talking about Time Mello. I read every single one of his books multiple times. I listen to his podcast all the times. It really motivates me. Um, I saw, how other companies are selling their businesses and not taking care of their employees, and how, they did it differently at A1 Garage Door. It's inspiring to me. This industry is really small. Everyone knows everyone, and everyone is willing to share with everyone. So there's an opportunity finally for someone who's 20-year-old with no direction to go in and say, I'm going into the trade. And it doesn't mean that you have to just go and do installs all day, or, be in the call center or clean the shop. You can develop and kind of grow, and there's so much more to get out of this industry. So I'm really hoping for people that are kind of a little bit lost and they're thinking, should I go to tech? Like they're looking for their future job. So should I go to tech or should I do this? Come into the trade industry, because people are making doctor salaries, lawyer salaries, what people used to look at in the 80s and 90s and
Oh
early
yeah.
2000s.
Oh yeah.
That's what we're doing here. There's a big community here that's so supportive. I really wish people would. I feel blessed. I feel blessed, and I feel lucky to get into this industry. and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. One of the things that I have found just absolutely fascinating about the trades in particular is the fact that, it's not a big deal for you as an HVAC company owner to call up somebody in New Jersey, as an example, be like, dude, can I come to your facility and talk shop with you about, and they'll do it, man. Absolutely. 100%. I'll tell you, man, if I called up, 5 of my closest competitors in the marketing space and said, I'd love to learn more about what you're doing, Rhino or whomever, there's no way. There's absolutely no way, and it's, so there's a different culture there, altogether. And one of the things that I keep hearing you say, and I think it really puts a capstone, if you will, on everything that we're hearing from, from you today. And that is it's really about vision. It's about mission. It's about having a big dream. And so I'd like to ask, two more questions, to really wrap this thing up. And the first one is, what is that dream for Michael Katz with Trio Heating, Air and Plumbing?
Yeah. So my dream since the beginning was to work for a business. It's the same dream that most people have, right? When you sit down and you're an employee somewhere, and you always say to yourself, wow, if you would give me the opportunity to run this business, I'll make this the best place, ever, right? There's that little dream. It's a little bit naive, but for the most part, my dream from the beginning was always, how do I create an environment where there's no jerks, there's no bullies, there's no kind of like cult culture, in a sense, like an environment that every person comes into the morning and they're happy. They feel good with themselves. I really want people to feel good when they come in, because we're spending more time with them than we do with our families and friends. I want to make this an enjoyable place. So that's always been my goal, and I've been pretty successful at it. So I'm happy about that. I'm proud of it. No one can take that away from me. That was the number one thing. The second thing was, how do I create a company that our clients never feel like the little guy? Because when I've been in situations where I was speaking to an airline company or, the bank, and I'm on hold for about 2 or 3 hours trying to solve an issue, and I'm already stressed because I know no one's helping me, and they can click to hang up, and they do many times. And I feel like so helpless. I feel like such a little guy. Or the construction work is happening in your house, home remodel, let's say, and suddenly the contractor comes to you in the middle of everything and says, you got to pay another 100K because we got a problem. And I never want my clients to feel like that. I want clients to get their answers quickly. I want us to pick up the phone. I want us to always be there. I want us to not argue with them. I want us to be able to give them refunds when bad stuff happen. I want them to be able to have to talk to one person and not multiple people and explain the story over and over and over again. I want that if the phone call drops, for someone to call them before they even think about calling you back. I want clients to have that experience, and I want the employees to have that experience. And I do want to make an impact on the environment too. I love the ability for us to plant a tree and recycle and do all these different things. So we are looking at these things and trying to think, how do we maximize them? And in addition to that, from the business side of it, right? Because everything I mentioned right now sounds kind of like a dream and nice and dandy. From the operation side, I want to be the most efficient, the most aggressive, the most relevant to the times of the industry. I want to make sure that we are putting the most strategic tactics in place. I want to be ruthless on that aspect of it. So there's two completely different sides of it. And my goal is just to keep pushing these things and see how far can we take it? How big can we take it? I believe the next stepping stone for us is going to be the 25 million. It's not too far from us. It's just a couple of hires away, right? A couple of recruits and you're there. So I'm pushing on these three things that I just talked about. And when we're getting to the 25 and 50 million, slowly we're going to get to the point that we are, building it all the way to, I don't necessarily know what, right? But 100 million, only a handful of companies did it. So that's always the goal for a lot of us business owners in this industry. And I do want to push it to 100 because the game keeps changing. I'm developing over time. Excuse me. I'm learning over time. I'm stretching myself, my abilities. You can throw a lot of problems at me now, and I'm not going to break sweat. So I do want to kind of push myself from the growth aspect of it, and hopefully get to the point that we are one of the companies that made history in the business. One of the companies that people look up to and say they treat their employees best. Their culture is the number one in the industry. Their processes is the number one in the industry. I wish I could, work in this place. And for customers, I wish my furnace will break down so I can call these guys finally, because I keep wanting to work with them. So when you push for these things, the growth just happens. And My goal is to not reinvent the wheel on anything before I was able to implement everything that these big guys have. Before I'm able to implement the best process out there for every single thing, and I hit the numbers that they hit when it comes to conversion rates and sales and marketing spent and all these different things, until I hit those numbers, I have no say for innovating things to a certain degree. So that's where I'm at. That's where my head is at. And we're growing this year. Our goal is 15 million from 10 million, and for the next few years, I'm looking to get from the 15 to 25.
The title of the podcast is Home Services Marketing from Growth to Acquisition. And so one of the things that I always like to ask, and it's interesting too, because I reach out to a lot of plumbing and HVAC company owners, and they hear the title, and I get sort of a mixed response. People are either want to talk, or they're like, private equity is killing the world, and how dare you? And it's like, hold on, I'm not on the private.
All of them.
No, they're not.
But
No, they're not. And for me, it's really about positioning, because we've worked with some companies that we've taken all the way to acquisition. They're great companies to work with. We haven't fared so well with private equity once that acquisition happens, but that's just it's still the type of business owners that I like to work with, that one way or another want to grow aggressively for a lot of the reasons that I think you really just talked about. So what is your exit strategy? What's your fill on private equity? And if you were going to sell, what would you want to have? What would you want to see happen as part of that sell?
I think, and I would love to touch on also what are private equities looking for? How much is your business worth? I think that's important too for people to know, because I'm hearing some crazy stuff out there. I'm pretty brutally honest with myself, and I know exactly how much my business is worth at any day when I open my eyes. And I think some people over there are kind of driving one truck thinking they'll get a million for it. So
or 5 or 6 trucks thinking it's worth 10 million.
yeah, it's kind of like, all right, man. Well, but basically, I think for us, at any point, if I would start to entertain the idea about, because right now we're still in the early stages for me, until I'm at 100, 120 employees, which is roughly about 20, 25 million, I really don't see, or hopefully 60 employees and 10 million more, right?
There you go.
But basically for us would be to potentially do a partial sale with a good private equity, because some of them are absolutely great, and people just hear about the horror stories, and they focus on that. Bad news travel faster than good news. So basically what we would want to do is get some funds in, so we would be able to actually strategically grow this a lot faster, learn from these private equities about infiltrating the market and doing all these different things to really kind of grow this business faster. I think as far as like an exit strategy, I'll never sell my business to a private equity that will take it and completely break it apart to pieces, right? I wouldn't want to do that to my people. There's a lot of people here that I build relationships with. They've been with me since day one still, and I want to take care of them. I love growing with them. I love being able to pay them more every year and do that. And they help me a lot too. They've been there for me in tough times. And I'm not going to forget that. Relationships are really important for me. So to take a little bit of money off the top, as you say, sell a certain portion of it, take care of our employees, put them in a completely different situation, life wise, right? Upgrading the lives of their family, and then growing more, getting into the market at some point at a certain size. I don't know exactly where my head will be, right? It could be that I'm at 50 million, 60 million, and a good deal comes in, and I'm going to say to myself, you know what, let's do it. I know that the people are going to be taken care of, so let's just do it. Um, so that's kind of for me. I think we're still on for the ride. I would love to stay part of it and really see how far we can take it, because I feel like there's so much more to learn. I don't feel like I'm ever going to be maxed out of this industry, because it's a billion trillion dollar industry. I feel like it's endless where you can take this, and that's what I love about it. You start at the warehouse cleaning stuff, you can sell your business in 5 years for 20 million. It's not too far fetched. So basically, that would be on that aspect of it. I think as far as what your business is worth, people hear a lot about the EBITDA or EBITDA, however they call it. It doesn't really matter. It just means profit. End of the day,
Right.
bottom line.
Right.
Bottom line means what you take home. I don't care about gross. I don't care about um, profits for sanity, revenues for vanity. So basically, for us, what we know from my experience, and again, the industry is changing, right? In COVID time, they were giving insane deals out there. They were just trying to clean out the industry. But for the most part, if you're a $1 million shop, I don't really think anyone is even gonna want to buy you too much, because they're buying your problems. They're buying your, they have to run everything for you. Like infrastructure, right? So that's the thing. When someone buys your business, they want to buy a business that's already running. So I think those things start at around now. Again, there's different strategies. Some companies are looking for the $2-3 million shops, but really it starts at 5 million, 10 million. The 20 millions is the one that they're really after most of the time. They're trying to not purchase anything above that because they have a lot more to leverage at those sizes. They can save so much money. So private equity, you don't know how they operate, right? If we would know, we would be doing it. So if you have a business that's 10 million, let's take our business for example, and your bottom line at the end of the year, for example, is 10%, then you were able to take home $1 million after everything, after the taxes, the employees, everything. And by the way, if you're saving money on managers and you're thinking, you do the sweat equity thing, private equity is going to look at it and say, okay, I'm going to need to put someone in your place. So let's take those $250,000 and that's going to go as part of the sale. Let's take your debt. That's going as part of your sale. And that's how they look at it, just profit. So you take your whatever profit that you have, and if you're in 10%, great, that's your $1 million. And then they give you a multiple. The multiple for 10 million is roughly anywhere between 5 times to 10 times, right? For example, let's say, really depends on the area where you're at. I don't know, something special about your business. But marketing spend, these things, they look at it too. And that's pretty much what you're going to get. Now, once you get to the 20 million, 25 million, and I'm not a private equity expert, but I spent a lot of time with people that are in the billions of dollars with private equity and, hearing their strategies. And one of friends of mine in the industry right now put his business on the market. They're about 100, 120 million. So basically, if you're at 20 million, the multiples get to even, past the 10th and they get to the 12th, maybe even the 15th. So the beauty of it is, if your business, if you're able to stick it through and your business made it through the first 5 years, 5 years is the real test for every business. So a lot of businesses pass through the first year, the second, they fell around the second, maybe third, maybe the fourth. If you pass the 5 years, you're good, you're in good space, right? So if you stick it out, get to the 20 million and your EBITDA is about 10 or 15% or so, that's 2 million, 2.5, 2.7 million, and you get a multiple of times 10, that's 20 something $1 million. If you're California, the government's going to take half of it. So that sucks for you, for me. But for the most part, that's how much your business is really worth. So if you have managers in place, you have processes in place, you guys are profitable, you guys are consistent, um, all of these things are going to come into play. And if you have any debts or any positions that are missed in your business, they're going to come in and basically do it. And you got to have clean financials. So if you're paying under the table thinking you're being slick, that's not going to fly. You're going to have to change a lot of these things. And I have a big competitor in my industry. I'm not going to say their name, but they're being pretty loud out there. We're at 40 million growth. We have 20 something locations. Their locations are actually employees that are working out of their home. They just put the address of their home, and they pay a lot of people cash. That's how they're being profitable. When someone goes into your financials, it doesn't take more than 30 minutes to understand that, like, they look at your P&L within 30 minutes. What's that over there? What's that number over there? So if that's the way that you're running your business, you're pretty far from being able to sell to private equity. So that's my take on all these different things. Some people are in it for the short term. They want to make the money right now on the next HVAC install. Some people are looking at it long term. So people want to exit quickly, take a few millions and dump their business. Some people want to stay on and keep going. These things will change over time too, as you learn, but make sure your financials are in place. Make sure that you take care of your bottom line. Be careful with your debts. Make sure that everything is clean and you know what's happening in your business. You need to know your average ticket. You need to know your bottom line every month. So these are the type of things that people really need to have.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. And this has been, the amount of time and energy that you put into really studying and understanding this industry, I think really speaks, volumes here listening to you speak. And yeah, absolutely. Well, Michael, this has been an absolutely fantastic interview for me. And just so happens I'm interviewing your brother here in about 10 minutes. So we probably ought to wrap this
That was crazy, man. I don't know how that happened.
It's it is what it is, but I'm excited about that one too. And again, thanks Michael from joining me from Trio Heating, Air, and Plumbing. And now if a fellow plumber, HVAC contractor, that sort of thing was looking to reach out to you guys for advice or whatever, would be a great way to get in touch with you?
Probably the easiest way, I tell this also to people that are interviewing, just Google Trio Heating, Air, and Plumbing or Trio Heating and Air online. Give us a call. We'll pick up within 10 seconds. Tell them, hey, I want to talk to Mike. I'm not trying to sell you marketing services. That's how you get through. But I think that's going to be one easy way to do it. We do get a lot of spam calls, and
Oh,
the
for
other way
sure.
would be LinkedIn or Instagram. It's always going to be Mickey Michael Katz, so Miki Michael Katz. They can always reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Um, I don't really respond to spam messages. I get 20, 30, 50 emails and messages a day on different platforms. But if someone ever send me a message and say, I listened to your podcast, I really want to come and spend the day with you and learn a few things about business. I don't care what size you are. I'll sit in, and whether if it's giving you the motivation to do it, I'll do it because it fills me up too. Whether if it's something to help you with your operations and you actually have a shop of about 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, I'm actually going to be learning a lot from you as well. So always open to doing those things. They can reach out to me in any platform.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Michael, for joining me. This has been another edition of the Home Services Marketing Growth to Acquisition podcast here with Michael Katz from Trio Plumbing, Heating and Air Conditioning, or Trio Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing. We got to get that HVAC side first. Again, I'm Adam Leverage with Job Calls, and I look so forward to the next edition of this podcast. Thanks so much.